everyone, and welcome to 100% You, a podcast which is all about discovering who you're truly meant to be and becoming the best version of yourself. I'm your host, Bari, and I've been on the self development journey for the past 15 years and spiritual journey for the past 13 years. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the Getaway Experience tapes by Monroe Institute that the CIA was using in the early 80s, and the document was published in 2003. This is an episode that I've been wanting to do for a really, really long time because this practice of the Getaway Experience tapes literally changed my life. I just knew that once I'm going to record an episode about this topic, I must devote at least a few days to research everything about this topic so you could actually get the full story. And also I got many requests lately about the Getaway Experience tapes and my own experience, so this is what we're gonna do today. If this is the first time listening to this podcast, so welcome and nice to meet you. I post each and every Tuesday episodes that gives you the tools to become 100% who you're meant to be in this world and know yourself better. And I've been working in the past months on a tool that will combine everything that you need in order to change your life forever. So if you want to be the first one to hear about this, you should go to the description box and sign up in the link to be the first one to know. So let's start with today's episode. Getaway Experience tapes. What does it actually mean? So, yeah, you heard correctly. I talked about the CIA. So, the whole point of the Getaway Experience is basically to help you expand your consciousness. So, it all started from Robert Monroe. He was a radio broadcaster in the 50s. He was really interested in frequencies and all of that kind of stuff. And around 1958, he experienced in just a few weeks a few out of body experiences. Once he had this experience, he was really fascinated and started to learn this and study and research this topic. A few years later, he already published his first book, and later on, he founded his institute, Monroe Institute, which basically researches the human consciousness, and later on also created the Getaway Experience tape, which we're going to talk about. Now, the CIA apparently got in touch with the Monroe Institute and wanted to practice their techniques on their own soldiers. So in 1983, the CIA basically tried for the first time those techniques. After they tried the technique, they published a document that validates the entire technique and said that it actually worked and helped them to get to different kind of experiences. Now in 2003, they published it so everyone can see it now. You can right now type in Google Getaway Experience CIA and you will find the two documents. One of them is basically explain the whole process and the techniques. And the second thing is the assessment of whether this technique works or not and the outcomes they got from trying these techniques. What I'm going to talk about today is my personal experience, and also I want to compare between the Getaway Experience tapes and different techniques that I tried, like Joe Dispenza and general meditations. A little bit about the tapes itself. So first of all, you can find it on YouTube for free. You can find also different websites that sell the tapes for thousands of dollars. I will link on the description box the free playlist that you can just try on your own at home. What does it actually mean, tapes? So it's meditation of around 30 minutes to 45 minutes. I think there's one of 15 minutes, but usually that's the length of them. And each meditation builds upon the previous one. And in each tape, you learn different types of technique. Again, in order, the final goal is to expand your consciousness beyond your physical body. So the first meditation, you basically start from the core, the base, to understand and learn the principles and affirmations that you must say before you start these meditations. And you will see that once you go into these meditations, each and every tape is you take techniques from the previous meditation and you build more techniques in each meditation until you get to level that it's much easier for you to expand your consciousness. During the meditations, there's different types of terms that you will learn that represent different kind of things. So one of them is focus 10. Focus 10 is a technique you learn in the beginning of the meditation. I think it's in the first 3-4 tapes, you learn to get to focus 10. Focus 10 is some kind of level that you expand in your consciousness. So the whole thing here is that you don't need to work hard, like let's say Joe Dispenza meditation, in order to get to that state. You just learn the technique on how to get there. And it based on sound frequencies. So Robert Monroe actually wrote a patent on this of the two hemispheres, that he found out that once you put different frequencies in each ear, your brain will basically need to synchronize itself based on the, I hope I said correctly, based on the difference of frequencies. So let's say in one ear you hear frequency 210, in the second ear you're going to hear frequency of 200. So the difference is 10 hertz frequency. So your brain at some point need to do this hemisphere correlation. I really hope I said correctly, because this is something I just learned for this episode. So basically what happened, he wrote the patent that the sounds and frequencies that you hear during meditation can help you expand your consciousness much faster. So you have levels like focus 10, then you learn how to get to focus 12, which is a higher level of frequency, and where you expand your consciousness much more than just your physical body. Then you also have focus 15, 21, and etc. And each level, you basically, it takes time. You build different techniques that you learn during each tape in order to get to that state. Things that you can accomplish during this type of meditation. So first of all, and the most known one is remote viewing. You can actually learn techniques of how to remote viewing during this meditation. And it's not that hard once you actually practice and stay consistent with those meditations. I will talk about my experience soon. Another thing is time traveling, which I know it sounds insane and it sounds like we're in a sci-fi movie, but you actually can time travel through this meditations when you practice the techniques and you learn them and you stay consistent. You'll get to a situation where your intuition is much stronger. You can heal your own body. You can learn how to send messages to other people from your own consciousness. There's so many different things you can do, but the main thing most people talk about getaway experience is out of body experience, time traveling, remote viewing, and just sharpen your intuition. I will say though that I feel like all the content that is out there about the getaway experience is really I don't know what about you. For me, when I just heard the content and YouTube videos of people talking about this experience, it put a lot of fear in me, because it sounds like it's scary, and it sounds like you must do it the right way, and yes, you must do it the right way, but once you listen to the meditations, you just listen to it. You can't skip. You will see you can skip the previous ones. You must do each tape on its own and just go slowly on this process. More things that they talk about in the getaway experience, especially I'm talking about the documents that they publish in the CIA that you can read yourself. It's literally public. You can just go and read about this. So they talk about that people who practice the getaway experience, they experience time-space jumping, quantum leaping, and they explain that once you raise your frequency high enough, so you can basically jump out of this timeline and see the past and see the future. They also talked about it that there is no time and everything is happening in the present moment, and it's just a hologram. What we experience is basically a universal hologram, that every information exists, is tuned to certain type of frequency, and in order to experience this, you just need to tune to the right frequency. Now, it's something that we all heard about this, that you just need to tune to the right frequency to experience what you want and experience the right information. But they actually researched this, and it's actually in the CIA been practiced in the 80s. So if it was like 40, almost 50 years ago, think about what is possible today, which is insane. So a little bit about my story. So I've been on meditations from around 2022. I started with the meditation of Joe Dispenza. I also had a whole episode about how I started meditating, about the whole process, because I was exposed to meditation, 2017, I would say maybe 2018. I started a little bit practicing, but once I actually went full in meditation was 2022. So it was basically Joe Dispenza meditations. I used to do 40 minutes meditation. And at some point, I had like one or two meditation that I used to practice all the time. At that time, I had like only one meditation that was 45 minutes long, which I did every day for a few months. And at some point, I felt like I was just craving different types of meditation. I looked for something else because I just couldn't. I needed change. I needed change. I didn't like the meditation that you find for free on YouTube, those like 40 minutes meditation. I didn't like those. I wanted something that actually worked and rewire my brain and help me get the results that you basically get in Joe Dispenza meditation, but something else. So I don't remember exactly how I found the getaway experience meditation. I think I saw a YouTube video of someone talking about this. And I don't even think that I heard the full video. I just saw he talked about meditation. He talked about how crazy those meditation are. And I just remember I heard the word crazy or something like this or intense. And I was like, that's for me. I want to try this. So I looked for this meditation. And again, like I didn't hear anything about the getaway experience. I even didn't know it was of the CIA. I just like heard getaway experience meditation. That's it. And I loved that it's a series of meditation. So with Joe Dispenza, you usually will practice just one meditation for a really long time. But with the getaway experience, I had now 50 different meditations of 30 to 45 minutes. And I was so in love with the idea of watching a series and every day listening to a different meditation. And I found it very cool because was for the first time I heard about a concept of literally every day listening to a different meditation and learn techniques during the meditation. So I was like, okay, that sounds really cool. Let's try it. So it was around September 2024, just so you understand like the timeline. So I took this as a project. I was determined to make meditation something that I'm doing every day. And because before that, I was procrastinating and I didn't do the meditation because I just couldn't listen to Joe Dispenza meditation anymore. So I started doing the getaway experience meditations. 45 minutes every morning. And it was a time when I really looking for answers. I noticed many patterns I had in my own life. I also took a mental coach and I was working every single day for a few hours to uncover patterns that I had in my life, to try to figure out what traumas I had and try to just solve my entire life and open a new page. That was like my whole goal back then. So the getaway experience for me was like a new beginning. Now, when you start the meditation, first thing first, also in the workbook of the getaway experience, they say you must learn the technique and not skip anything because otherwise people on the internet say it can be dangerous. I don't believe in dangerous. I just believe in listening to the instructions and that's it. So I was, as I said, I didn't know it's dangerous or whatever. I just was very, very curious about how to do those meditation. So when you start a meditation in each one of them, you have just a few minutes of preparation. So when you start, you have the first affirmation and it starts from I am more than my physical body because I am more than a physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. Therefore, in this exercise, I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy system as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. Also, during this exercise, I deeply desired the help and cooperation and assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience is equal or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my state desire. By the way, this whole affirmation, only now I understand how powerful it is after almost 2 years. And after like I did this meditation, but this is one of the most important things and you cannot skip this. So when you do this meditation, just listen to the instructions and like do whatever they tell you and you will be fine. And then they continue. I now protect myself as may be needed from such influence and reject any source that may restrain me from my stated desire. And then there is second affirmation that goes like I open this channel of communication only to those who, and again I didn't know what I'm doing when I started this meditation. I didn't know what channel means, what other entities. I didn't know what does it mean. I was just like, oh, cool meditation. And then weird stuff started happening, which we're gonna talk very, very soon. So it goes as I said, I opened this channel of communication only to those who knowledge, wisdom, development, and experience is equal or greater than my own. I restrict such content and communication to constructive purpose and reject all other. I only now understand, like when I did the research for this episode, I understood how crazy it is that I found out about this meditation without understanding what I'm doing. Okay, they continue. I open such channel only when I consciously desire. At all other time, it will remain closed. And then you have a few exercises. One of them called resonant breathing exercise. Then you have another one which called resonant energy balloon. And there's also at the very beginning, which this is one of the most powerful tools that I use in different meditation also, and sometimes I use it in my own life when I need to present something or do something. It's called energy conversion box. So you basically at the beginning of the meditation, they teach you technique. When I say they, it's like the sound you hear in the meditation, right? So it's Robert Monroe. His voice basically talks to you in the meditation. So you learn about the energy conversion box, which basically when you start meditating and you start with the whole process of breathing, then you need to imagine a box, energetic box, and you put there all your worried or your thoughts or all your problems, everything that consumes your mind. You put it in the box and you just close with heavily the box, and then you can start with your own meditation. And I'm telling you, this specific exercise, this technique changed my life in the meditations. So let's go back for a second. So I said that I started this meditation, and in the four, it was a meditation about taking things out of the conversion box. So as I said, you put worries, you put fears, you put situations, people, everything you put in the conversion box, and then you go back to the conversion box and you take out everything, and you trying to find out any patterns, any fears, any doubts that you have, and you identify them. And that was actually the first time ever in my life that I realized what patterns and traumas I have from my childhood, which was insane for me. And after a few days, okay, literally, like after a few days, I did the meditation. Every day I did a different tape. Okay. Usually, when you do this technique, you should. So there's different people saying different stuff, but the majority of the people online saying that the best would be to take each tape and meditate for it for like at least 1 week until you feel that you can move to the next tape. You can do that and you can just do every tape each day. I will say though that you must be consistent. If you will not be consistent, it will be very hard to see process. You will see process and things happening in your life, but it might take longer. So I did, as I said, every day I did different tape. And again, tape is like literally a meditation of 35, 40 minutes meditation. Each day I did a different one. So what happened is that, think about it, after 7 days, I was already in tape number 7. Then after 2 weeks, I was tape number 14. And after around week and a half, I'm not kidding you, I started seeing really weird stuff happening in my life. Like really weird stuff. First of all, my intuition went crazy. I always had very sharp intuition, but it was on a completely different level. I just knew everything. Like I just felt things. I was in sync with the universe more than I ever been in my entire life. I used to think about something, it happened the same way. I used to say something, it happened like after 2 minutes. Everything was in sync and everything was happening. I felt like the universe is reorganizing itself toward my desires. That's what I felt. Another thing that I felt like telepathy and those kind of stuff really expanded. I didn't know if I believe in that stuff before that. Like I didn't even thought about those kind of stuff, but because I started experiencing really weird stuff, I started noticing this. Like I felt thoughts of other people. I felt like someone wanted to call me and then he called me. Like, those kind of stuff when you're in sync with the universe, it happened all the time. Another stuff that started happening to me again after like week and a half, which was insane. I'll try to explain you how the meditation works. So, as I said at the beginning, the first part of the meditation, there is preparation. You prepare for the meditation, then you learn some kind of techniques. The first four meditation, you just four, five, six, I don't remember the exact number, but you learn techniques, some kind of techniques, and then you just learn the beginning, and you take everything you learned at a few first tapes, and then you will have those techniques in every meditation. And in every meditation you basically work on different techniques. So sometimes it would be remote viewing, sometimes it would be out of body experience, sometimes it will be working with energy and colors and sounds, and every tape basically works on different technique. Again, I had no clue what I'm doing. Okay, I had no clue. I didn't know that. So after I did the meditations, I started experiencing. First of all, it was the deepest meditation I ever did in my entire life. Okay, if I'll compare it for a second with Joe Dispenza meditation, because I flew to Joe Dispenza retreat in Basel in March 2025. That's also why I stopped Getaway Experience tapes, because I wanted to start practicing Joe Dispenza meditation to be in the mindset of like Joe Dispenza. But up until March 2025, no, February 2025, I used to do Getaway Experience meditation for a few months. The difference, I would say, so Joe Dispenza basically tell you that you need to sit for a few hours, and it takes practice and a lot of consistency to get to that no space, no time, no one. And then when you get to that level, you can create your own reality. Joe Dispenza also teach you different techniques of how you can be intentional about what you want and basically achieve it and how to get it. But it takes practice. And also Joe Dispenza work based on a lot of research he made, which is incredible. If you never heard about Joe Dispenza, I highly recommend to go check out his work, his research, everything, books, podcast. I don't think he has a podcast, but he was guest on many podcasts. So the difference, I would say, that with Joe Dispenza, it takes time and a lot of intention and a lot of consistency to get to that place. With Getaway Experience, I felt like I could get to that no time, no space frequency level. I don't know how to call it, space, with the techniques that I learned, because you learn techniques, very specific techniques, like the Pavlov experiment in psychology. So the same way, you basically teach your body how to react to certain techniques. So with the Getaway Experience, I could get to that no time, no space really fast. Like after 5, 6, 7 minutes of meditation, when I got to focus 12, focus 15, focus 12 usually. After focus 10, you get to that expanded awareness, and focus 12, you just feel like you're completely different level. So the thing with Getaway Experience, you learn how to get to that space, and it's much easier to create your own reality, and you see things shift much faster. Joe Dispenza, it takes a lot of time to practice. So that's what I really love about Getaway Experience. And you just feel it in your own body that things start shifting really fast, like really fast. So what happened with me after around, I told you, 1 week and a half, 2 weeks, I start seeing, first of all, I had the deepest meditation I had in my entire life. Then I started experience situation where I felt that I'm seeing people, because in the meditation you have exercise that basically tells you that you see yourself. Now I can tell you that the whole thing is practice out of body experience, but I didn't know it. You basically practice seeing yourself, and your soul gets out of your body, and you can see what's happening in the room, then you can see what's happening in your home, then you can see what's happening in your city, in your country, whatever. And the whole thing is to learn how to get to that situation. And you learn another technique that calls the energy bar tool. And with that tool, you can basically project that bar and like send it wherever you want and see what's happening there. It can be in the present, it can be in the past, it can be in the future. Again, I had no clue what I'm doing. So I started seeing people, and I saw like people that I was thinking about. It was very specific, but I saw one person a few times during my meditation, and I just felt like I'm in the room, like literally in the room. You just see things and you know you're there, but you're not in your body. And, I'm very spiritual, so I thought it's normal. I really thought it's normal until one time I had this experience and I felt like there was block and I couldn't see anymore. And I was like waking up. And then after a few days, I did it again, this practice. And for the first time, I could I could basically validate what I had, that it was remote viewing. It will be a little bit gross, but stay with me. I was sitting in my room. So my room was, it was a big room, and I had two doors in my room, one in the front door and one door for a balcony. And when I was meditating the way that I see only the front door. And on the back door, I had guitar standing there. So I never really saw the door because it was like covered, because I never go to the balcony. So I didn't see the door. There was a guitar that was leaning toward the door. And I did the meditation every time when I woke up. So again, I was just drinking coffee. I didn't even like go around the house. I was just drinking coffee, read a book, and then sit and do my meditation. And when I started this practice of how they say to start seeing yourself, seeing the room, seeing the whatever, I saw in my meditation, okay, it was after 3 minutes of starting the meditation, probably. I saw a picture in my head of a cockroach, okay, and I saw like I'm literally like next to him, like seeing him, and it was very zoom in. And I saw him almost dying. And I saw it in the meditation. I was like, why am I seeing this? This is so weird. I almost want to open my eyes because I was like, what is happening here? Why I see it in my meditation? And it was a picture of, not a picture, like I was actually there, a cockroach, and I saw him almost dying. And he was in the corner of the door of my room. That's what I saw in the meditation. I just saw him like I'm standing next to him, like I'm in the size of cockroach and I'm standing next to him and I see him almost dying. And I was so surprised. It was just really weird. And I saw it. And then when I tried to focus myself and to zoom out to see the situation, I saw it was on the door, on the corner door of my room. I thought it's a situation that I need to face my fears because I have fear of cockroaches. I just can't see them. So I thought it's a situation that brought to me in the meditation in order to face my fears. So that's why I saw it. And I saw it for like 1 minute, and then I moved with my meditation, and I just really didn't understand what happened. I was like, this is so weird. And the craziest thing that happened is that after I finished the meditation, I think it was 1 hour, 2 hours later, I needed to take something from the balcony. So I took the guitar, put it in another place, and then I saw a cockroach, the exact one that I saw in my meditation, in the corner of the door in the room there. The exact picture that I saw in my meditation, I saw it in real life 2 hours later. So, what's basically happened that I saw it in my meditation 2 hours before that, and I didn't see that corner of the door. I have a guitar there. I didn't see it at all. I was shocked. And when this happened, I was like, okay, something weird is happening here, because every day I felt that I'm seeing people, and that was the first time that I actually had validation that what I saw is actually happening in the present moment. So I started researching and reading about what is the getaway experience tapes, and then I realized it was something, a technique of the CIA, and that people experience remote viewing and people experience time traveling. So I started being a little bit scared about the situation. I didn't feel ready to go into this, open this Pandora box, because I'm telling you, it was intense. Also, my friends, I had one friend that we were every day together in university, and she told me back then like that my intuition is insane. Everything that I said just happened, much more intense than what I had when I practiced Joe Dispenza meditation. And then I continued doing the meditation for a little bit more because I was very curious to see what's going to happen. And there was one day I had meditation, and again, like I didn't understand what happened to me until like a year later, that I went more deep to learn about the getaway experience, because I started talking about this also on Instagram. People started commenting to me about this and say, yes, this is like a real thing. We also experienced this. So I had one meditation that I experienced time traveling. When I had this, I did not understand it was time traveling. It took me a few weeks to understand it was time traveling. So I saw a situation when I was a kid, and it's not like you see situation like a movie or like a picture. You actually inside the situation. You experience this. So I felt that my consciousness is basically went back to situation where I was a kid, like 6 years old, 7 years old, 4 years old, and experience it again. Like I was in the situation. I felt like I am in my body there, which was insane. It was insane. So I had this. It was like running movie. I saw a few different situations and scenarios. And you know what's the most crazy thing? The moment that I got the experience to travel to during the meditation, I remember that when I was a kid, I had multiple times of deja vu about this moment. And another thing is, after like 20, 30 meditations there, you basically go up in the ladder of like learning the techniques, and you at some point get to focus 21, which is basically seeing the future. Because I had it only one time, so after I read the documents and everything, I understood that people actually experience this. But you know, until I'll have more experience, it will be hard for me to say, to validate it. But I saw a situation where I saw myself where I was older and I was a mom and I had child on my lap, and I had a husband next to me, and I was on a yacht. I saw myself for literally like a few seconds. So I didn't recognize how the child and the husband looked like. I just saw myself, and I was shocked during the meditation that I'm looking older than what I am today, which was really insane. And then I got out of the situation, and I think after that time I was like, this is too intense for me right now to experience. Also, I want to start doing Joe Dispenza meditations again. But in general, I can tell you that getaway experience meditation, by far, I think it's the technique that helped me expand my consciousness more than anything I ever tried, really. Joe Dispenza meditation also worked very well, and I experienced really crazy situations while practicing it consistently. But with the getaway experience, the thing is that you just you learn the technique and you easily get to the situation where you're in the no time, no space, no one, and you can create and basically shift your timeline very fast. Because I don't know who is listening to this episode right now, so if you try this, first of all, take it easy on yourself. Don't try to rush this. Don't try to skip certain step. Like if you do this, just go through the steps, listen to what they're saying, say the affirmations by heart. If they say like I'm protective, say this and do all the techniques. Don't skip it, because otherwise it will be harder to get there. And also it's to mess around with energies, you tap to a different frequency, different energies. And again, I don't believe in saying things are dangerous. I don't believe in this. And many videos, if you will hear about getaway experience, people say it might be dangerous, it might be this. I don't believe it might be dangerous if you're doing it the right way. You just need to practice the exact way they tell you. And if you do it the right way, there is no reason you will not experience. You might experience fear. And this is something we also talked about in previous episodes, also in the episode about meditation. You might experience fear. Maybe you're not ready for this. So if you're not ready to experience those kind of experiment, so wait with this. Like, don't rush yourself into something that you just want to try. But again, I do believe that things comes to you at the right time, at the right place. So if you heard about this is probably a sign that you're ready for this. If you start doing this, it's also a sign your soul want to try this kind of stuff. If you do this, you don't have to do the whole research. I do think though that after I read the entire document, like I read everything, there is one document of 21 pages and another one of 30 pages of the assessment about the experience, and the 21 pages is the workbook on how to do the techniques. I can tell you that after I read it, but I read it only this week, it changed how I looked at the getaway experience, and for the better, because now I understand that it's basically techniques and you can try your own stuff. I really believe everyone has their own input, and you can try and take something you learn and maybe implement it in other different meditations. So, take everything that you learn and see what works for you. Another thing that I never heard anyone talk about online when I read now the document, so they say about the remote viewing, they said they made an experiment, which is very interesting. They took a group of people, and the group of people were on one continent, and they had experiment on a different continent completely, and they put their 10 different computers on which one of them they had different numbers. And the whole point of the experiment is to see if the group of people, when they're doing the getaway experience method and they're doing the remote viewing technique, whether they can guess and see all the numbers on the computer from a different continent, which is insane. And what they said that all of them guessed almost all of the numbers right, but they said that none could actually see the 10 numbers. They could see like 8 numbers, 9 numbers, I think. Like I don't think they mentioned the specific number, but they said almost all of the numbers except like they couldn't see 10 numbers. So one of the things that was written in the assessment document of the how was experiment about the remote viewing, they said that when you have the remote viewing and you experience it during meditation, you actually see the situation as it is, but there might be a small bend of the truth and you might see something that a little bit different from what is actually happening. So let's see, if there's 10 numbers, you might see only 8, and maybe one of them you will see a different number. So it might distort reality just a bit. So you will see the thing as it is, but there might be something that will be a little bit distorted. So this is also something you must take into account. And they explain it, I hope I'll say it correctly, but they explain, you can read the document, but they explain it that it happened because what we see is basically a hologram of a frequency. So everything we experience in this world is a hologram of a frequency that we're tuned to. My recommendations for everyone who wants to start, as I said, I would just be very open to this, put fear aside, and go to this very curious. I think it's amazing meditation you can do. As I said, I don't believe in the whole fear of like being scared of doing this. No, it's amazing opportunity. You just need to listen to the instructions. That's it. Like everything you do in your life, basically. Just listen to instructions. Don't try to rush it. Be very tuned to yourself. Don't rush it. If you feel like doing the meditation, a specific tape a few times or like a few weeks, do it and then move to the next one. And I would do one a day. I wouldn't do more practices during that. But again, everyone is different. Do whatever feels right for you. You are your own creator of your own life. The meditation, you can find them online. As I said, I put in the description box also the meditations, the playlist of the meditations, and link to both of the documents so you can watch. I'll see if I can add this because I don't know how YouTube works, but worst case, I'll just tell you what to type on Google and you can find it. And that's it basically. I love it. I think everyone should try this technique if you're interested in those kind of stuff. And in general, it just shows you how we create our own reality. It's crazy to go deep in that and understand that time traveling actually exists. I never believed in that until I experienced it myself. I never believed in remote viewing until I experienced this myself. And it's funny, I feel like every experience, spiritual experience I had, somehow every time it's very spontaneous. Like I get to know things spontaneously without even trying, which is insane. That's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on this episode. You can go to my social media and ask me questions. Feel free. And yeah, just have fun, enjoy, and remember that you are the creator of your own reality. So I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching. Bye.